Hi there, I'm dubbing myself in after this video was produced to let you know what's going on. This is a new series. It's called Stray Thoughts, where I talk about anything and everything on my mind, and it's basically a brainstorming session. And I was going to draw on this day, and I keep referencing it in the rest of the video, but I didn't end up drawing. I just ended up talking and sketching out some ideas for the Shiner. Specifically, I talk about how my faith is informing my fiction, and yeah, that's what it's all about here. Enjoy. Which is most of the time. Anyway, so some of you may know, or maybe it just comes across clearly, that I am what some would call a believer, although I think that's a vague term. By the way, got these in Germany. Pretty cool, right? I mean, look at that giant robot. Anyway, ironic, I'm going to talk about the Bible and maybe Christianity, for sure the Gospels, and this thing's called Evangelion, and that is the German word for gospel. It's kind of funny. Anyway, so some of y'all may know that I'm a believer, and I'm pretty open about it. One cool thing that I want to do, man. By the way, these are religious symbols that I was making for a story, a game actually. So, yeah, I guess my faith has always deeply impacted my writing, and I hadn't really realized that before. What am I looking for in this book? Anyway, so I've this year I decided to embark on a journey through the Bible, so to speak. So I started listening to the Tanakh. I got the audiobook for the Tanakh, which is the Jewish translation, or Jewish, there's the JPS Tanakh, which is the Old Testament, and I say that because it's not irrelevant because of its antiquity. Anyway, you could say it's the reverse. But anyway, so I listened to that. It's 60 hours long. I didn't listen to the first 5 books of Moses because I have been learning those every year for the last like 10 years or so, going through the weekly Torah portion, because I think the Torah is important. But anyway, today or this week I started listening to the Gospels, and that's been really illuminating and really enjoyable. It's been really cool. It's a Christian Bible. I can't remember. It's called like the New Life Bible or whatever. I think it's the only one you can find on Audible. Jason Alexander does a voice in it. If you don't know who that is, that's he was a gargoyle in Hunchback of Notre Dame, but you wouldn't know that. He's the guy who does the things. Vandelay Industries from Seinfeld. George Costanza. He plays George Costanza there. Anyway, so I don't think I've heard him yet, but you know, there's a lot of the Gospels left. Anyway, so he does a voice in there and a bunch of other actors, and it's kind of funny. It's a dramatic reading versus the JPS, which was, you know, so and so, you know, the Book of Such, chapter 1, and then it reads, and then chapter 2, and then it goes, and it's way different from this Christian version, which is fine. It's funny, the Bible, the Tanakh, is 60 hours, and I don't know how much the first 5 books, how many hours they take, but then I've only downloaded, it was in 10 parts, so it was broken like 10 6-hour books, you could conjecture. I think that's not quite right, because it put the first 5 together, and then it split everything up after that. Basically, it split it up by different types of sections. Anyway, doesn't matter. But the Christian Bible is split up into, 17 different parts, and 15, 16, and 17 are the Gospels, the Apostolic Writings, Revelation, the Epistles, all that stuff. So it's kind of funny that most of this Bible, 14 parts of this 17-part Bible, are all the Old Testament. And so much of what's in the New Testament is a repetition from the Old Testament. Repetition, allusions, references. Allusions are references, so I'm cheating there. But basically, basically, I was very much inspired by the dramatic nature of it. It's cool to hear Jesus, you know, being sharp about certain things, chuckling about stuff, because the guy who does because it's a dramatic reading, when there's like kids involved or when something's going on, he'll like laugh or something, and sometimes it's like a gentle humor laugh, sometimes it's kind of a derisive laugh, so that's kind of interesting, and I like the humanizing of Jesus, because I think too many people, I just think, if he was really a fully person, then he would had to have been human, not like Spock, right? Is that where we're at? Oh my goodness, don't tell me. I've been looking for my drawings of a certain somebody, and they've been here the whole time. Yep. So Seon Ga, in writing Seon Ga, so I'm basically going to get on topic now. Well, what I really wanted to do right now, during my break, is write about John the Baptist, because I had a lot of thoughts about him, because I've listened to all of Matthew, all of Mark, and I think I started Luke today. Yeah, I started Luke today. So, and, each book gives different angles, different perspectives on stuff. And John the Baptist seemed like an interesting dude. And I remember when I had been more into study of the Gospels and the New Testament previously in my life, I had a lot of thoughts about him and what he was like. But listening today to the accounts in Luke about him getting killed, executed, basically. I think it's the second account of him getting executed. I think Matthew skips it over, Mark includes it, or maybe it's the other way around, and then Luke has it for sure. But anyway, hearing the account of him being executed, it made me think about what was it like for him to be in this dungeon for some time before he was executed. Did he think he failed his mission? It got me thinking a lot, and I actually wanted to write about him and write a short story from his perspective. I hope nobody thinks that's sacrilegious. I'm taking all biblical stuff into account, but something else got me going, and actually because I've studied and been reading and thinking about things from the Torah for years, as well as the Gospels, it got me thinking about it ties in with The Shiner, because in the short story I released about him, there's this bed of rock or whatever on the ocean floor that the Song of the Sea calls him to, and it's actually, I've determined that it would be sapphire. Now there's a legend about Moses when he traveled to Midian from Egypt that I think it goes like this. It's a medrash or midrash, and I think it goes like this: that whoever wanted to marry Jethro's daughters, any one of Jethro's daughters, not all of them, because there were 7 of them, and anyway, whatever. Polygamy was technically okay back then, or acceptable, I guess. Permissible? Can't remember how that goes. Anyway, it wasn't encouraged necessarily. But anybody who wanted to marry one of his daughters, there was this tree where he pitched his tent, and they would have to uproot the tree, and if they could, that meant that they could marry his daughters. Now, in the legend, Moses goes and he grabs the tree and he pulls it, and the tree starts pulling him back, pulling at him, pulling his life force or his essence out or whatever. Really weird, right? But he kind of digs deep and finds the inner strength, probably the strength he needed to lead a nation through the wilderness for 38 years, 40 years, however you want to put it. 38 years weren't so hot. Anyway, fun fact, the book of Exodus, starting at the book of Exodus to the end of, I think, Leviticus, or maybe all through Leviticus, covers 1 or 2 years. And then I think at the end of Leviticus, there's the whole thing with the 12 spies, and then it basically skips over almost 38 years in Numbers skips over 38 years later, so they're in the 40th year, and the rest of Deuteronomy takes place over I think a space of a couple of weeks, where Moses is recounting everything to the people. At least that's what the Jewish sources say. Anyway, but going back to this legend, he pulls out this tree, and the tree, the leaves and stuff, disappear, and it turns into a staff, and this staff has Hebrew letters on it, and these Hebrew letters, I think, are initials for all the 10 plagues of Egypt that he strikes Egypt with, or that God uses him to strike Egypt with to free his people, whatever, right? So super cool. And then there's this whole thing about how the tablets of the Ten Commandments are actually made out of cubes of sapphire, or the second ones anyway, because once Moses destroys the first set, God tells him to go bring new tablets and he'll go ahead and write on them, you know, the finger of God sort of thing. But that this is another legend that there's that Moses is like, Lord, where am I going to find this stuff? And he says, under your tent you'll find something. So he goes and there's like this whole expanse of sapphire, and he takes chunks from that. I'm sure they were refined or whatever, and gives them to God, and then he writes on them, and then he takes those, you know, sapphire cubes down, and they have the 10 Commandments written on them, 5 and 5. So anyway, pretty cool, pretty neat. And for some reason, thinking about Sion and like the source of his powers, and maybe it was while I was writing him, I thought, like, man, this guy should be, like, I kind of want his powers to be, I don't know, like magical or natural or something. And I thought, I ultimately arrived at the thought, I'll cut to the chase since I've given such a preamble to this, that I want his powers to be derived, like, I don't know how to say this, like, I kind of want him to be a holy warrior, or like, I don't know, not like a crusader, but just like, maybe he was set apart by God to do this thing. And part of the reason behind that is because I've got my Cosmic Cadets who are, I have my Cosmic Cadets who, they come from a diverse background. They all have different religions, and they happen to be fighting like an atheist, futurist scientist kind of guy who ostensibly, you know, rejects God or hates God or whatever. I'm not sure how you know, how aggressive I'm going to make him towards the concept of you know, divinity or deity, but there sure are some hateful atheists out there, and you know, why can't I have a villain be a hateful atheist, right? You get hateful believers as villains and things, so why not flip the script a little bit? But anyway, yeah, I was thinking, like, because Sion, like, you know, you get all these prophets and whatever, and I'm not saying necessarily that Sion is a prophet, but Sion Ga is the Shiner, and he happens to be Samoan, and there happen to be a lot of Christians in or on Samoa and in the surrounding area, and you know, they were like, I'm okay with Sion being Christian. I don't see any, like, I don't feel a need to keep God out of my my children's writing endeavors. I mean, if DC can have John Constantine, you know the devil and Gabriel and God and all these things, then why can't I have my own version of that? And you know, there's Spawn and stuff, but like, it's kind of a traditional thing to have a character be associated with, you know, God or a deity or several deities or whatever. But I figure I'm kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, how do you create? I've always had this issue with different worlds. Like, so how do you have a world where you have all these different religions working, and simultaneously you have, you know, aliens too in their spaceships and they're flying around, and like, how do you connect all that? And you know, I have read some C.S. Lewis. I read Paralandra, and in that it casts aliens and maybe even like UFOs and stuff as being spiritual or divine type entities, kind of like how he did it with Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe with fantasy stuff, except this was, you know, sci-fi or whatever. And I think it's safe to do some sort of religious bent with Sion Ga. Like, he's a really, like, I don't know, this is silly. There's this anime and manga called Sailor Moon, and in Sailor Moon it's about this girl who basically, like, becomes God, sort of, or like she always was. In the world of Sailor Moon, she's this, like, she's basically like this divine goddess type individual, and she protects the world from evil and darkness and stuff, and she does it because she loves people, and because she gets sad when people are hurting, and because she wants to protect people and defend them. And those, like, soft strengths, those inner strengths of hers, are what makes her I don't know, what makes her who she is, what makes her worthy of basically being like God in this fictional universe. And that's something I'm kind of interested in exploring. Like, why can't, you know, the strength of a man come from the goodness of his heart? And like, part of the reason that I focused on this aspect of the Shiner, him having this big glowing thing in his chest, is because I wanted it to represent, now where's my final drawing of him? I wanted it to represent the fact that he has a good heart, and I want his good heart, that's not his final head, I want his good heart to be like a core, it's a core aesthetic, it's plain, it's right there, but I want it to be like part of the reason he was chosen to have this power, part of the reason he was called out. I didn't want it to be, you know, an accident of science or just, you know, like brown people island magic, that just because he's, you know, from an island and he speaks with an accent or whatever, that he's got these magical powers, because that's paternalistic and what's the other word, like patronizing. It's kind of related, but like I didn't want that to be the case. So like, I don't know, I kind of want to do this interesting fusion of like, look, this guy's got, you know, his traditional Samoan tattoos on him from having a family. They go up the thighs and the back of the legs and everything, and on his arm and shoulders. And so like he's an islander. Like, I don't know, I want to be able to like represent something complex. So it's like, I've got this, I've got this Samoan guy. He's Christian, but like, he's Christian, he's Samoan, you know, he's a father, a husband. Like, all these things really matter to who he is. Even something that I really enjoyed that I was able to do, and I think my wife gave me the idea to do it, is that, yeah, that was her idea, that the first person that Sion saves using his powers is, and like unwittingly using his powers, he just does the right thing and his powers activate and help him out, is he saves his wife. So like, being the Shiner is all of who he is. Like, like he and his wife even named their daughter Samaria, which is apparently, I looked it up, it's a Samoan name, a given name, and it basically means like Good Samaritan. It's derived from Good Samaritan, and of course there's Samaria, which is the region, but that's what the Samaritan, anyway, you get it, I'm sure. But like, I don't know, like, why can't he be, I don't know, I think it'll be really interesting to explore, like Sion Ga being this like servant of God, and like helping people through that. And I don't know, I'm really interested in that. There's actually, I was kind of thinking about having, like, in a not super creepy, gross way, like, you know, could we have demons and spirits and stuff that he's dealing with? And I'm still kind of toying with that idea. It's really interesting to listen to the dramatic account of the Gospels, because it has, like, you know, Jesus and his pals are his disciples. I don't mean to be flippant or disrespectful. They're, you know, going from one town to the next, and like almost like a random encounter in a video game, like a demon-possessed guy just shows up as they're going along, and he's like, you are the Son of God, and we will or like, you know, have you come to torment us? And he's like, shh, don't expose me, it's not my time yet, be quiet. And the spirit's like, you've come to do this, and we, like, I don't know, like, they're just, like, freaking out at him, and he's like, all right, be gone, and then they're cast out, and he, like, it's, I believe that he was doing it out of the goodness of his heart to help these demon-possessed people, but also, for whatever reason, he wasn't ready to be revealed as the Son of God, as Messiah, as whatever, and, therefore, he almost, like, did it to silence them, and, like, I like the, getting back to Sion, like, his family, he and his family live in an RV, and they're traveling around the United States of America. So, like, I want him to be a vagabond, and I want him to, like kind of stumble across people to help, but I almost want it to be, like, while they're traveling, he's arriving at, you know, like, the stops they make, the things that go bad, it's all, like, part of a plan, for him to be able to do what he can. I don't know, I just feel like that's pretty cool. So it's definitely something I want to develop and something I want to write on more. And maybe I'll do a little something, or maybe I need to work on it a little more. I don't know. I recently heard somebody say that you have to write with your body, you have to write from your guts. And actually I heard two different people say that. Very separate from each other. One was a writer and somebody else was on their blog, and somebody else was on a podcast, and they mentioned that, and I thought that's really interesting. So anyway, if you like this, you can go ahead and give me a like, hit that thumbs up. You can also hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to get a notification next time one of these comes out. And I thank you for your time. Be well.